Welcome back to Upside Down Movie Reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing the ninth film written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, and many, many others in its stacked cast. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood takes place in 1969 Los Angeles and tells the story of Rick Dalton, played by DiCaprio, a TV star who is heading into the downfall of his career and not getting the starring roles he was in his heyday. Along with him for the ride is his longtime stunt double Cliff Booth, played by Pitt, who is Dalton's best friend and personal chauffeur, who doesn't get a lot of stuntman jobs anymore because of an incident he was involved in. Hollywood is changing, and Rick and Cliff are beginning to not recognize what the industry is becoming, as stars like Sharon Tate, portrayed by Margot Robbie, are beginning to take over the city as the new Hollywood big stars. This is a movie I've been looking forward to for a long time, not only because Tarantino is one of the best writer-directors today, but the three leads of the movie are all great. Brad Pitt has always had a great on-screen presence, Margot Robbie is extremely talented, and probably the most beautiful woman in Hollywood today, and Leonardo DiCaprio is my favorite actor of all time. Shockingly, I have not seen most of Tarantino's films. I barely saw Pulp Fiction for the first time a few days ago, which I enjoyed very much. But overall, I know how great he is from my little exposure, and everything about this film has had me really excited. This was a very Tarantino film, and I mean that it's no different in the way it was written and directed than all of his other films. He brings a vision to his movies that no one else in the industry has. He makes his scripts and movies how he wants to make them, and you can see that in all of his directorial decisions. His movies don't follow the rules that most typically do. Tarantino's screenplays seem to be more of an accumulation of well acted scenes and less of a smooth transitioning plot that progresses scene to scene, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is just like that. Tarantino has such an appreciation for film that you can see very clearly throughout this film in particular. This film was his way of paying respects to his favorite era of film and Hollywood as a whole, the late 1960s, and wow, he made this movie look very beautiful. Besides the production capabilities of today's technology, this movie really felt like it was filmed in 1969. He was able to close down parts of freeways and even downtown Hollywood and completely bring 1969 Hollywood back to life. Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt were such a dynamic together. I loved every minute they shared on screen together. These are two of the greatest actors of all time and always make you believe they are the characters they're playing, which is a big reason as to why they're so great. Leo is my favorite actor ever, and always does things in his movies that completely blow me away. One of the best scenes in this movie is his conversation he has with a little girl who is on set starring in a new pilot for a TV show with him. And the girl, by the way, has some serious great acting chops for being only 11 or so, and from what Tarantino got out of her, I wouldn't be surprised if she's actually a star someday. Following that conversation, DiCaprio later goes on to having a meltdown, where afterwards he gives a brilliant performance that reassures his character Rick Dalton that he still has some gas in the acting tank. And seeing him act in a scene as he's acting in the movie, actception you could call it, was a beautiful thing to see. He always gives everything he has to every role he has ever played. That just shows how great of an actor he's always been. Brad Pitt's character Cliff Booth was probably my overall favorite character in the entire movie. He was phenomenal and hilarious. This movie was extremely funny, and Pitt brought a lot of that. Cliff was a fun character to watch, one of those people who just plays the cards they're dealt and rolls with the punches, literally. My favorite scene, and probably the best scene of the entire movie, was the sequence that took place during the final 20 minutes involving Pitt and some others, but it was absolutely bonkers and gave the hardest laugh of the movie for sure. Margot Robbie did not have as big of a role in this movie as I and many others were expecting. It was almost a similar feeling for me with Uma Thurman's character in Pulp Fiction, where I had never seen the movie and always thought she had a way bigger role in the movie, but doesn't as much as I was thinking. Margot Robbie is, however, in most of the movie. We see Sharon Tate a lot, but she is more of a secondary character than a primary, but somewhat got the screen time of a primary, if that makes any sense. She just felt underutilized in this movie for the talented actress she is. I definitely recommend checking out her movie I, Tonya if you ever have a chance. If you think she is just a pretty face in the movies, this movie will prove you wrong. She is one hell of an actress, and this movie gave her an Academy Award nomination. She has one scene in the movie where she is driving in a car, and the camera just holds on her face for 15 seconds of silence, and I didn't want it to end. She is so gorgeous, the entire movie could have been that same shot of her driving, and I wouldn't have been mad. I mean, just look at her. I want this poster I have on screen, and I plan on getting one too. The rest of the cast was great as well. Tarantino always likes to bring in the best talent he can, even for supporting roles, and it makes every scene a lot better. Coming into the movie, I was expecting it to go into the Manson murder stuff a little bit, but if you're expecting really anything about the murders, drop those expectations now. Tarantino is no stranger to building up scenes and then having them mean nothing later in the movie, and he has a lot of them in this movie. There are a lot of scenes that you feel could or should be important later, but with how he writes his movies, these scenes are always just left behind. It feels like he breaks his writing up into scene by scene instead of writing one overall movie start to finish. He breaks the rules of traditional film like discussed prior, and although it works a lot of the time because he fills his scenes with such great acting and dialogue, there are still times to me this doesn't work out. For example, there's one scene in particular where Cliff Booth goes to an old Western movie set where there is some suspense in its buildup and actions are taken that you think could have some importance later, but nope, that's it. From my understanding, this is not one of Tarantino's best films, and that doesn't mean it's a bad film, because if you look at his track record, he has a lot of great films. This film was written, directed, and acted very good, but his style is something that is still very new to me, and it didn't work for me 100% of the time, but this is still a very good movie. This movie can be found boring at times for a lot of people, but the 2 hour and 40-minute runtime wasn't that heavy on the shoulders for me personally, so proceed with caution if you're going to check it out. Overall, this movie was very funny and I had a good time watching it. I'm gonna give Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a B. Have you guys seen the movie or planning on going to check it out? If so, let me know in the comments below. There haven't been a lot of movies coming out as of late, but I'll be reviewing any movie that does. Look forward to the review for The Art of Self-Defense coming later this weekend. All feedback is much appreciated as always in the comments. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.